Okay, Pennywise Pauper, match 2 with Acid Trip. So we have a pretty awful hand. The downside of playing Chanceries is that sometimes you draw an all Chancery hand, and whether it's one of them or two of them or three of them, it's basically equivalent to a zero land hand. So I'm going to mulligan. This hand, we got another risky one land keep, but we have a Preordain and a Scry, and I don't want to go down to 5. That's not a land, so I'll put it away. Alright, turn 1 Barrenmore means we're most likely going up against mono black control. Lands for days. I'll put both of those on top. Opponent leads with Sign in Blood. We play a tap land and pass. Chittering Rats. Okay. And we see if we get locked out of the game or not. Take some Devotion off the table. Next turn we have 4 mana, so we can play 2/2 drops or a 4 drop. Although playing 2/2 drops is going to be pretty dangerous, given that we'll have to return 2 permanents to our hand. Phyrexian Raider and pass. So I guess now is as good a time as any to play the Serrated Arrows out. We can use up some counters on it, pick it up, replay it. And maybe if our opponent has a slow start, this will be sort of enough to slow them down. Our opponent cycles a Barrenmore and untaps. I really enjoy playing mono black control because it's so consistent with all the card draw that it has and the interchangeable 3 drops and only playing one color of mana, so you can't get color screwed, is pretty sweet. Our opponent Signs in Blood into Sign in Blood, so they're presumably digging for lands here. Start using the Serrated Arrows. Our opponent is missing a land drop after cycling away a Barrenmore and then Sign in Blooding twice. That's pretty unlucky. Maybe they should have kept that Sign in Blood. So they had a discard. They discarded a Disfigure and a Crypt Rats. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Play out the Skyfisher. Pick up our Serrated Arrows. And we're going to get our beat down on, I suppose, by playing out another Core Skyfisher, even though it will require us to pick up a land. Play another Chancery. Having 2 Chanceries in play makes it a little bit awkward, having to use our mana 2 at a time like that, but now we have multiple untapped lands in hand. Chittering Rats comes down. Our opponent did make a land drop this turn. Also Witches. So our opponent's at 13 from all the Sign in Bloods, so we're going to start attacking them. And now we get to play out Serrated Arrows again. If our opponent has Grey Merchant here, they're probably going to win this race. That's all there is to it. But if we can dodge it for 1 turn, we might be okay. No, we can't dodge it. So our opponent has a 6-point life swing to go up to 15. I'm getting counters on this Chittering Rats first because I want to actually get it completely off the table in case there's more Grey Merchants coming. Ooh, Face Fetters. That's neat. I'm doing that now in case our opponent has Undying Evil. I don't want them to Undying Evil in response and get back their Chittering Rats with a +1/+1 counter on it. Now the question is, do we mind our opponent using Kuambaj Witches? I don't think we do. I think we'd rather shut down the 2/4. And we might as well play the Screamstalker out. We can pick up our Serrated Arrows again to reset the counters. And does our opponent have removal for our flyers? Or maybe just like 2 Gray Merchants in hand. 2 additional ones. Either one of those would be pretty bad for us here. There is also an argument for keeping Dream Stalker in hand in case I drew a Reality Acid, but I think our window of closing this game out is going to close very steadily as our opponent draws more cards and finds more Gray Merchants and removals, so I just wanted to be as fast as possible. Alright, Unearth targeting Crypt Rats, and the board is going away? Yes, it is. Okay, there's the Muldrifter. I shouldn't have played that land out yet. Hopefully I don't get punished for it by drawing a tap land I want to play. Journey to Nowhere, Spreading Seas. Okay, so here I'm going to hit a swamp in case they have Tendrils of Corruption or Corrupt to cut down their swamp count, and then I'm going to pass. Opponent leads off with Chittering Rats. Disfigures our Muldrifter. And passes. Okay, let's see if we have any other options before we fire off these other spells. Okay. So our plan is pretty straightforward here. We're going to stop taking devotion or stop taking damage and stop letting them have devotion and play out all our spells. Another upside of playing out all our spells is that we're immune to Chittering Rats now. They have a Fire Ice Raider. Okay, so they're at 5 life, but we're not particularly aggressive, and our opponent has 3 more cards in hand than we do. I guess I'll go ahead and start using this to get that off the table. And a land in hand. I don't have anything in my graveyard. I don't have any Momentary Blink. And even if I did, it would not matter because I don't have any creatures of my own to blink. Opponent's going to attack. I'm going to attempt to kill it. That works. Gray Merchant with only 2 devotion. Spreading Seas again. Okay. Let's see what we get. Kabira Crossroads. Fairly awful. I'm just going to take the 2 damage here. If I draw a bounce creature, I'm going to want to pick up the Serrated Arrows again, and I can't do that if I have to sacrifice it. Gray Merchant number 2. And this game has about slipped out of our grasp. So we're going to put a counter on one of these. We're going to take 3 damage, and then we're dead to basically anything. If we draw running Muldrifters back to back to back, maybe throw in some lone missionaries at the end there, we could crawl back, but our opponent's just so likely to have either more creatures or removal that it doesn't really matter. Unearthed Chittering Rats, yeah, that's going to do it for us. We can't get rid of this in any way, so it has to go back on our top of our library, which means we have to draw it again. Which means we're just delaying the inevitable at this point. Make sure our opponent doesn't sneaky shuffle our library for us somehow. And there's the Corrupt to finish us off. Okay, so they're playing a fairly typical build. They have Crypt Rat's main deck, which is not always the case. Sometimes Pestilence makes the cut over Crypt Rats, but in any case, it's time to sideboard. So against Mono Black, I'm going to bring in 2 counter spells, just to stop Gray Merchants basically, but some of their other spells are pretty bad if they resolve. I'm going to cut a Momentary Blink, because they can remove our creature in response. Momentary Blink is interesting. It's good when your opponent has removal and they make the first move, and then you blink the creature in response to their removal, but it's pretty bad when you make the first move and then they kill your creature in response. So it's sometimes hard to tell whether this gets better or worse when your opponent has more removal, but I think our other cards are important enough that we're going to cut one of those. And we're also going to cut this Serrated Arrows. It can grind out some value, but in general, it's just too slow. Even taking 2 arrow hits to remove one of their creatures is too slow, because they're going to build up devotion and be able to kill us and attack us by then. It's better in matchups where your opponent has some number of 1 toughness creatures. And we'll go on to game 2. We would like to play first. And we have a keepable hand, so that's great. Tap land or preordain first is an interesting decision. I'm going to go with preordain. Core Skyfisher and Dreamstalker. Well, we don't have any Reality S in hand, so we don't need an abundance of these creatures. And in fact, I think I'm going to get rid of both of them. I could potentially play the Core Skyfisher, pick up a land, and try to get our beatdown on, but it's not very good against a deck with a lot of removal. We can't count on that 2-3 to last any significant length of time. Our opponent cycles a Barrenmoor and passes. We will play a tap land and pass as well. We drew a Reality Acid, so we can now get rid of something with Dreamstalker over the course of 2 turns. Our opponent is Sign-in Blooding. They're on the draw, so they have 8 cards in hand now. They're going to have to discard. They get rid of a Swamp. Okay, well, we could Reality Acid here, or we could evoke Muldrifter, but I think the best choice is definitely Spreading Seas. Play a land pass. We might be forced to evoke this Muldrifter next turn to hit some more land drops. It looks like that is the case, because we are not drawing land. We could also potentially play Dreamstalker and replay Kabira Crossroads. That's certainly an option. In fact, it's an option that I kind of like, so I think I'm going to go for that. I could have left open a blue mana to fake that I had boarded into spells, but I accidentally misclicked, so much for that. Shooting Rats number 2. So that's basically a major punishment for the play that we just made. In any other situation, I think we'd be happy that we had done what we had done. But our opponent saw that we didn't make a land drop, a real land drop in any case, and pounced on it. Alright, there's a land. Our opponent Sign-in Bloods. Chainer's Edict. Okay. So if our opponent has Chainer's Edict and Unearths, it might be worth it to board in the relics. Before I didn't see any Chainers, so I thought they might be a list without them. Although that's fairly atypical. So here I'm going to cut down on some Devotion, and I'm going to get a blocker out. I realize that I'm not using this Dreamstalker to the best of its potential, because it could be picking up this Reality Acid, but I'm eventually going to draw into another bounce creature anyway. And this lets me take less damage now. Our opponent casts Phyrexian Rager and draws a card. And Victim of Nights our Dreamstalker away, so they can keep on getting in for damage. Counterspell. Well, that's interesting. It's not particularly good right here. So I think I'm forced to evoke another Muldrifter. And I don't draw any lands. Well, I think this is going to be a match loss. We can't draw lands. Our opponent has us beat on the board. And if they play a Gary here, or a Duress, or I don't know, there's a lot of things they could do to mess us up. Oh, there's the Gary. And then they get to attack us, down to 11. So we're dead in 2 attacks. So we need to start getting something going on right now. I suppose Core Skyfisher is sort of a plan. I'm rather obviously leaving up Counterspell here, but I don't really mind being obvious. I could also leave up Momentary Blink instead, but that doesn't really do anything. If our opponent tries to remove it and we Momentary Blink, we're going to have to bounce a permanent. And I don't particularly want to bounce another permanent because I want to get to 5 lands. We're going to counter this Chainer's Edict. Additionally, Momentary Blink does not protect against Chainer's Edict, which is another reason it's a little bit worse in this matchup. Our opponent has another Gary. Drain us for 7. We fall to 2. And I think that's it for us. I suppose I can Spreading Seas our opponent swamp just to see if I draw a life gain. Lone Missionary would keep us in it for a little while, and we do not. Okay. And that was a relatively quick match against Mono Black Control where we got trounced by card advantage. And there's the Wrench Mine as well. We'll let our opponent go ahead and make the attack. Tendrils, our opponent's kind of just showing off now. And there we go, down to -4. Alright, let's hope for some more wins. Let's go to match 3.